What's up, guys? So this video is going to be on real estate. Sorry, I just got super bad allergies, so everything is just that time of year right now. Almost thought I had COVID. So if you already have a pretty big portfolio, or if you've been in the real estate games, this is not something that you're going to want to listen to. You can stop right here. If you already have a loan officer, you have everything set up, and if you've been through the whole experience, you're not going to gain anything from here. So I'm going to just do you a favor and stop it right there. But if you're a first-time buyer, maybe a second or third time buyer, kind of like where I'm at, like you're trying to grow your portfolio, I believe that this video and the information I'm going to give you could help. So to start off with is, if you ever see somebody online or the real estate gurus or your friends, just talking all this BS saying, oh, all you need is 20% down in good credit and you could get a real estate property. That's totally wrong. I'm here to tell you that's just not the way it works. So let's define the two rules. Is it possible to do that? Yes, it is. Later in the video, I'll tell you how it's possible to do that. In the beginning, I'm going to tell you why it's not possible. Well, they'll kind of be together. Well, the only way that you could do that in the sense of the 20% down is if you decide to live in the property and if it's 4 units or under. Anything after 4 units is considered an investment property. Also, if it's your second property, not your primary residence, is also considered an investment property. And that's the key. So from my experience, what I've noticed so far, I've talked to well over 10 banks and a handful of loan officers. Every bank wants to give a loan out that's above $500,000. They really don't want to mess with loans under 500 because to them it's like peanuts. They really don't want to waste the time with it. And if they do it, they want 30 to 35% down. You got to have good credit. You got to have good credit history, and you got to have good revenue. And what they mean by revenue is your income yourself. So we'll start clean. Let's say if you have, no rental properties. Let's say you don't even have a house. You don't have a house, we'll cover both scenarios. But let's say you're making $100,000 a year, which equates to roughly $8,000 a month, about $6,000 take home after taxes. That's pretty good. And if you live modest, you'll have about $2,000 worth of disposable income in the sense that you could do, whatever you want with it. You'll be qualified pretty easily in the sense of if you come up with 35% down on the property you're looking at, the bank will most likely give you the loan. And it's crazy because the way they classify this is so crazy. And the excuse I got, or the reasoning I got for a few banks when they told me, sorry, it's going to have to be this high or whatever, was, oh, it's discrimination. Because if somebody else comes in and they want another loan similar to yours that in the amount, we have to give them that at the rate, which is 20% down, 25% down at this much. Otherwise, they'll be sued for discrimination. But when it goes above 500,000, that threshold is kind of thrown away, and then the bank could work with you. It could go as low as 20%, and it could go as high as 30%. But you're more likely to score a deal if it's above $500,000 or even above $1 million. Usually, anything above $1 million, they're willing to consider. It's a crazy world, I know. I mean, it should really just be about the deal and how good the deal is, but when it comes to loan amounts, these bankers are pretty scared. I have no idea. It's just, definitely a discrimination thing, and then definitely they don't want to waste their time with it. For example, I'll give you the loan that I'm working on is about $385,000. It's 5 units. Each one of the units are generating $800 a piece, so it's $4,000 a month. But even with me, I have great credit history, great disposable income. But they're still asking for 35% down. And on top of that, I have to pay $8,000 to secure the loan, $4,000 for the appraisal, and another $4,000 for, escrow, closing, an environmental fee, just a bunch of nonsense. It's pretty much pay to play. So if you're sitting here today and you're like, okay, well, I want to get in this rental game. How can I get in it? I mean, okay, so the 20% rule is out the window. If it's an investment, it has to be 30 to 35%. And I have to have great credit, and I got to have all that cash on hand. The only other way to get around it is if you listen to Bigger Pockets, it's kind of like life hack, or they call it house hacking in a sense. If you get a duplex, a triplex, which is 3 or 4plex, anything above that, it won't cover it under the 30-year fixed. It goes into investment grade. If you get under 5 units, you could say that you're living in one. You could say, hey, I'm going to live in 1 unit. I'm going to rent out the other 3. And then you'd qualify for way better terms And it's so crazy to think that if you're saying, oh, I'm going to rent out all 4 or all 3 or all 2, you have to get hit with this 35 down. But you're saying you're living in one, you get the FHA loan, and you could get a way better deal. Then and only then can you get the 20% down and get a 30-year fixed on it. Otherwise, you're kind of SOL. If it's just like, let's say if you had your own residence, like you live in your own house, that you purchased your own house and you were buying that as an investment, you can't get that. But if you live with your parents or something and you're saying, oh, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to live in one, as long as you stay there for 6 months to a year, then you could leave. No one's really watching, but that's the trick. That's the only way you can get it for these smaller deals, get it done at a fair price. Otherwise, you're going to be like me, you're going to end up paying an arm and a leg. And for me, I'm kind of like at that position where I kind of have to overpay because I'm trying to build up the assets eventually to get a bigger deal. But in order to get the bigger deals, you got to be able to, you know, cash flow. So it's kind of like, but for someone who's willing to, you know, house hack or life hack, if you're willing to wait that time and you're willing to, you know, live in those units, like, you know, a year at a time, and you build up like 6 or 7 years worth, like 7 properties, 8 properties, then you could potentially have a lot of equity built up in the first couple. You could sell those, put some cash in, and roll yourself into a bigger, you know, $700-800 million deal, and you could get those favorable terms. So to wrap it up, anyone that says 20% down is full of BS. You could, if you find the right loan officer and the right deal. It's not impossible, but I'm just saying on average, it's really not. So how would you go about it? If you got like, you know, $50,000 to $100,000 saved, that's about how much you're going to need in order to, you know, get your first rental in a sense. You could go on the lower end and go for like the $100,000 range, and you're still going to need about $30,000 to $40,000. But this is what I believe that you would need to do. Step one is identify a market. So, you know, what market do you like? You know, is it going to be here where I live in, you know, Fresno? Is it going to be in St. Louis? Is it going to be, you know, wherever it is that you like. Second, you look for the deals and see, okay, there is a market here. There are some deals available. Then the third thing you need to do is collect your taxes for the previous year and, you know, have your pay stub ready and just start calling all the local banks around there and saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm interested in buying rentals, and this is my tax return. This is what I have. Do you think we could work with something if I find and bring you a deal? Of course, some banks are going to say, hey, look, listen, like, you know, thank you, but we need you to bring us a deal so we can evaluate it. But at least this is the first step you could take to get yourself familiar with the local players in town, right? Sorry, I got to blow my nose real quick. Once you become familiar with those local players, then the next step would be is to bring them a deal, right? Then you find a deal you like, you get it under escrow, you make an offer. They're going to ask for proof of funds. You show that you have the funds to get it done. You open the escrow, you bring the deal to the 1 or 2 connects that you built, and, you know, they'll help you out from there. You know, from there, they'll look at your revenue, your credit, your ability to pay. They'll look at the deal. They'll ask for, you know, they'll go get an appraisal, and then they'll say, okay, at the end of the day, you know, we're good to go here, and you need to put this much down, and boom, the deal's yours. But on average, those deals, if it's an investment, if you classify it as an investment, they're going to want anywhere from 30 to 35%. But if you're saying you're living in it, they'll take as low as 5 to 20%, usually 20, because it's not going to be, unless it's your very first home, then you could get away and qualify with that 5% down. But most banks now are asking 20, but you got to live there for 6 months to a year. So I always found it funny. You always see these people always talking like, oh yeah, just 20%, bro. You'll be able to get the deal done. No, it just doesn't work that way. And it's like, a lot of this is because of the regulations that were brought on from the 2008 financial crisis, because these loan officers were just kind of like, yeah, we'll hand it out, you know. But I feel like they need to be relooked at, because the deal's good, then the deal should be good. But we'll see how that goes, if it gets deregulated or not. So to wrap this whole thing up, if you're looking to buy just as an investment and it's under $500,000, you're going to have a tough time getting a loan. You're going to need to come down with 30 to 35%. If you're buying it as an investment, but you're willing to live in one, you'll be able to get it for 20%. Anything above $500,000 to $1 million plus, there's a little bit more leeway. You could get rates under 30 to 30, or like 30, 25, 20%, depending on the deal. But the key here, guys, is to build the relationship. And that's one thing that that's the one thing I learned. And I wish I would have known this before I got the deal. I was all wet and happy. I was like, yeah, it's a good deal. If I were to take a step back, I would have built a better relationship, because all the deals I did cash up front, and then I refied after, and I pulled the equity out. This is my first time just buying something, in a sense, turnkey. And what turnkey means is like it's ready to rent for you. There's not a lot of work to do. It's just like you buy it, you start making some money, and that's what it is. I wish I would have had this knowledge, and I hope if you watch this, you learned something, or at least you got an understanding or an idea of like how you want to pursue your real estate ventures. Anyways, if you have any questions, I wish I would have had someone to DM, so just DM me. Most of the time I'm going to tell you to build those relationships first, because once you talk to a banker or a loan officer, they're going to tell you exactly what you need. That's your job. But then again, I don't mind analyzing a deal. If you got something lined up and you're like, hey, take a look at this, whatever, when I get some time, I'll take a look at it, give you my feedback. Hey, if you found this video informative, or if you learned at least a few things or at least one thing, I'd appreciate it if you shared it with at least one friend or shared it on your story to help the account grow. Appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a good weekend.